I never imagined that at 33 I would be faced with such an unexpected turning point in my life. Up until that moment, my path had been an orderly succession of planned stages: university, work, marriage to Tommaso, my high school love. Every piece seemed in its place, composing a mosaic of apparent perfection. Yet beneath that immaculate surface, I felt a growing dissatisfaction, a silent languor that I didn't have the courage to face. The holiday in Greece was supposed to be an opportunity to rediscover myself, to rekindle the spark that had faded over the years. Tommaso, blocked by urgent work commitments, had encouraged me to leave alone, with the promise of bringing back a fragment of sun and magic upon my return. The resort was an idyllic refuge. White villas overlooked a crystalline sea, surrounded by the inebriating scent of jasmine and the constant song of cicadas. Every detail seemed designed to free the soul, and I felt reborn, as if the weight of daily responsibilities had vanished with a breath. It was on the third day that something extraordinary happened. I was sitting at the beach bar, a cocktail in my hand and an open book on my lap, when a deep voice interrupted my reading. "Life is too short to read boring books," said one man, with a smile that seemed to light up the entire beach. I looked up, surprised, and met deep blue eyes that sparkled like the sea at sunset. In front of me stood a man in his 60s, tall and distinguished, with graying hair framing a lined but charming face. His smile was contagious, and before I knew it, I was smiling too. "And who said it's boring?" I retorted, proudly showing off the cover of my thriller. "Ah, the mysteries of life and death," he replied theatrically, taking a seat on the stool next to mine. "I'm Giorgio. Nice to meet you." "Maria," I replied, shaking the hand she held out to me. It was a warm, sure touch that made me gasp. What began as a brief conversation soon turned into an intense and passionate dialogue. Giorgio, a retired university professor, had traveled to every corner of the world, and his words were imbued with wisdom and charm. He spoke to me about photography, art, and philosophy, intertwining his stories with anecdotes that left me fascinated. His every sentence was an invitation to explore new horizons, and I found myself hanging on his lips. Sunset came too quickly, painting the sky in shades of gold. With a smile, Giorgio proposed that we have dinner together. I didn't hesitate even for a moment. That evening, in the intimate setting of a seaside tavern, between flickering candles and the sound of the waves, something inside me awakened. It wasn't just the physical attraction, although that was undeniable. It was a deep, intellectual, and emotional connection that I hadn't felt in years. The following days were a whirlwind of emotions that completely overwhelmed me. With Giorgio, I explored hidden beaches and picturesque villages, immersing myself in conversations that made me feel alive like never before. One evening, while we admired the starry sky from the terrace of his villa, he took my hand. His touch was an electric shock, and when our eyes met, the world around us seemed to dissolve. At that moment, only the two of us existed. The kiss that followed was an explosion of sweetness and passion, a fusion of souls and desires that made me forget everything else, even Tommaso. That night, in Giorgio's arms, she cheated on my husband for the first time. It was an overwhelming experience, full of passion and painful awareness. Every caress, every kiss was a spark that lit something dormant inside me, but also brought with it an unbearable weight of guilt. Tommaso was always in my thoughts, his sincere love waiting for me at home, unaware of what was happening. The days passed in a swing of joy and torment. Every moment spent with Giorgio was a precious gift. But the evenings when I returned alone to my room, were marked by Tommaso's messages. Affectionate words, plans for the future, fragments of a life that seemed so distant. I desperately tried to convince myself that what was happening was just a parenthesis, an illusion created by the magic of the holiday, but deep down, I knew it was much more. What moment has moved you the most so far? Write it in the comments and tell us your opinion. A week before the end of the holiday, I decided to confess everything to Giorgio. I told him about Tommaso, about our marriage, about my feelings of guilt that were eating away at me. I expected anger, disappointment, but what I received was a profound and disarming understanding. "Maria," he said calmly, clasping my hands in his, "life is a tangle of choices and compromises. Love is an enigma. I can't tell you which path to follow, but I want you to know that these days with you have been the most beautiful of my life. You are an extraordinary woman, and you deserve to be happy." His words struck me in the heart. For the first time, I seriously considered the idea of leaving everything, my life, my marriage, to build something new with Giorgio. It was a thought that scared and fascinated me at the same time. The last days of the holiday were a kaleidoscope of emotions. Every moment with Giorgio was a taste of what could be, but the weight of my responsibilities always brought me back to reality. My life was at a crossroads, and I knew I would soon have to make a choice. Every kiss, every caress, every conversation was imbued with a bittersweet emotion that seemed to carve every moment into the heart. The night before my departure, Giorgio held me in his arms, and the tears began to flow abundantly. I cried for the pain I was about to cause Tommaso, for the joy I had found with Giorgio, and for the uncertainty that troubled my spirit. His hand caressed my face, and his blue eyes, as deep as the sea at sunset, seemed to want to capture every fragment of that moment. The day of departure arrived too quickly, and while Giorgio accompanied me to the airport, a silence full of meaning surrounded our every gesture. We stopped in front of the gate, and his eyes met mine. "Never forget how special you are," he whispered to me, his tone soft but firm, as if those words could protect me from the storms that lay ahead. His last kiss was sweet and intense, a seal on a chapter of my life that I could never forget. On the plane, my heart was heavy as a rock. I looked out the window, mentally retracing every moment, the warmth of his hands, the magic of conversations under the stars, the awakening of emotions that I thought were dormant. But my thoughts also returned to Tommaso, to our home, to the smiles shared and the promises made. When I landed, his face greeted me with a smile that was a promise of normality. He was waiting for me with a bouquet of flowers, and his warm embrace erased for an instant my confusion. "Welcome home, my love," he said, in a trembling voice, hugging me tightly. As his words echoed sweetly and familiarly, a deep dilemma stirred within me. I knew a decision loomed, a choice that would rewrite the course of my life. I had to face the truth with Tommaso or leave it buried in silence. I had to decide whether to leave Giorgio behind with the memories he carried with him, or risk everything to chase that feeling that seemed impossible to ignore. The following days were a whirlwind of emotions. I returned to routine with Tommaso, seeking comfort in the familiarity of our daily routine. But Giorgio's thoughts were a constant presence, a silent voice that crept in at the most unexpected moments. While working, I found myself lost in memories of our walks along the beach, and at night, his eyes would appear in my dreams, awakening my heart with an irregular beat. Every time Tommaso held me in his arms or said, "I love you," the sense of guilt pierced me like a sharp blade. I sought refuge in work, accumulating commitments and overtime, hoping that the occupation could quell the inner storm. Tommaso initially welcomed my renewed commitment with enthusiasm, but soon began to notice my distance. One evening, while I was overwhelmed by documents, he looked up at me worriedly. "Maria, is everything okay? You seem distant lately," he asked me, with a sweetness that struck me in the heart. The temptation to confess everything was strong, but fear held me back once again. That night, as I watched him sleep, I realized how much I had to lose. Tommaso had been my pillar for years, sharing joys and sorrows with me, building a life together. Could I really sacrifice all this for a love born under the sun of a holiday? Yet the echo of Giorgio's words continued to resonate. Life is complicated. Love is complicated. Maybe there were no simple answers, only truths to face. A month later, an email from Giorgio reignited my inner storm. With shaking hands, I opened the message. "Dear Maria, I hope this email finds you well. I know you probably didn't expect to hear from me, and believe me, I thought for a long time before writing to you. I don't want to complicate your life, but I feel I have to tell you something. The days spent together in Greece were among the most beautiful of my life. I loved and was loved, but what I felt with you was unique. Your intelligence, your sensitivity, your vibrant spirit awakened emotions in me. I thought you forgot I'm asking to turn your life upside down, but I wanted you to know that if you ever want to explore what's between us, I'll be here. Whatever your choice, I wish you happiness. You deserve to be loved for the amazing woman you are. With love, Giorgio." I read and reread the email several times, with tears blurring my vision, while my heart seemed to tighten in a painful grip. Giorgio's every word resonated inside me, bringing back all the emotions that I had tried to repress in the last few weeks. The sincere love for Tommaso, the overwhelming passion for Giorgio, the sense of guilt that burned like an open wound, and the confusion that agitated every thought. Everything mixed together in an unstoppable vortex, making me feel trapped between two worlds that were so different and yet both real. I realized that I could no longer escape from myself. The time had come to choose. But how? Should I stay with Tommaso, the man who had loved and supported me with unparalleled dedication, or pursue Giorgio, the man who had reawakened in me an ardor that I thought had been lost? That evening, when Tommaso returned, my nerves were as tense as violin strings. Every breath was a feat, but I knew I could no longer live a lie. "Tommaso, we need to talk," I said, my voice shaking like a leaf in the wind. He looked at me, and in his eyes I read concern, but also a sort of resignation, as if he had already guessed what I was about to reveal. "What is it, Maria?" he asked, sitting next to me on the couch. I took a deep breath, trying to find the courage to face the truth. I began to speak, the words slipping through sobs. I told him about Greece, about Giorgio, about how I felt alive, desired, seen like never before. I told him about the confusion that had overwhelmed me, the guilt that had consumed me, the torment I had experienced day after day, and finally, with tears streaming down my face, I asked him for forgiveness. Tommaso remained silent. Every second seemed like an eternity. When he finally spoke, his voice was calm, but filled with a pain that seemed to break every fiber of his being. "I love you, Maria," he said. "I've always loved you. But I can't force you to stay if your heart is elsewhere." Those words hit me like lightning. In that moment, I understood how deeply Tommaso knew me, how much he loved me, He was willing to put my happiness above his, to let me go if it meant I would find my peace. I don't know what I want, Tommaso, I admitted through tears. I just know that I don't want to lose you. He took my hands, his eyes fixed on mine. Maybe we need time to figure out what we both really want. We agreed to take a break. Tommaso would temporarily move in with his brother, giving us the necessary space to reflect. The weeks that followed were the most difficult of my life. I felt lost, like a castaway at the mercy of the waves, torn between the comfort of the familiar and the excitement of the unknown. I talked to friends, to a therapist, desperately trying to find an answer in the depths of my soul. Finally, after days of torment and introspection, I came to a conclusion. As much as Giorgio had awakened ardent emotions in me, what I had with Tommaso was deeper. It was not a fleeting passion, but a love built on years of sharing, sacrifice, and intimacy. It was not a flash in the pan, but a lasting flame, which deserved to be protected and fueled. I called Tommaso and asked him to meet us. When I saw him, my heart was filled with a renewed, more mature, more aware love. "I've made my choice, Tommaso," I said, my voice firm but excited. "If you still want me, I want to rebuild what we have. It won't be easy, I know, but I believe in us. I believe in our history." He looked at me for a long time, and then held me in a hug that spoke 1,000 words. "I love you, Maria. We can get through this, too, together." I wrote an email to Giorgio, thanking him for everything he had taught me. I told him that he had reawakened parts of me that I thought were lost, but that my life belonged to Tommaso. I knew it wouldn't be an easy journey. Trust had to be rebuilt, step by step. There were moments of anger, of tears, of doubts, but there were also moments of love, of rediscovered laughter, of small gestures that spoke of a mutual commitment not to give up. Today, looking back, I see that summer in Greece as an important, painful, but necessary chapter. He taught me that love is not always overwhelming passion, but also understanding, forgiveness, and conscious choice. Life is complicated. Love is even more so. But it is the choices we make, the courage to face ourselves, that define who we are and the path we take. And I, in that chaos, found my balance. If you want to receive new videos of the series, write, "I want the sequel," in the comments. If you liked the video, leave a like and subscribe to the channel to receive a preview of future publications. Thank you.